This podcast is powered by The Plug.
I just wanted to come back after a couple months and fulfill my commitment that I said I was going to make. I started a podcast a couple months ago, and it is with a sad heart that I am reporting that I fell into the trap. I fell into the trap of perfectionism and thinking that each episode needed to be an hour long and really full of like the meatiest wellness content that I could ever create. And I wasn't really practicing what I was preaching in terms of recognizing that people online in this weird space that we call the internet want to see others in their raw state or their subconscious state. And I think this plays into a lot of the idea that, when we pick a career, let's say you are becoming a doctor or a lawyer or some sort of researcher in any area, you're not going to not do that because other people are doing it, right? There's this element of the unique talents that you bring. So whether you're believing in your dharma or what the universe has gifted you with, God has gifted you with, we all have our unique talents, and that is what we bring to our career ultimately. And so a lot of people have some fear, I would say, around creating content online because, somebody else is already doing it. But the whole point of doing it is that you're going to bring your unique perspective. And so this is something that I tell my clients too all the time, and I wasn't taking my own advice. So I want to be transparent and authentic by sharing that with you. So I'm not going to go through apologies and say, I'm so sorry for not recording because I really don't think anybody cared that much. But my goal on this platform, on Instagram, on Facebook, on whatever podcast, Apple podcast that you're listening to me through, my commitment when I first made this was to come to you all authentically. So I just wanted to share that. I've also got my dog with me here. So if you hear any bizarre noises, he is getting himself comfortable in the bed right now. His bed, to be clear. Let's just take a couple deep breaths together. Let's go ahead and inhale and exhale. Again, inhale. And exhale. One more, deepest breath you can take. Inhale. And last exhale. Hope that felt good for you. That certainly made me feel better. So I want to give a quick thank you to Danny. They are an incredible person who has come into my life. I recently asked them to hold me accountable to do this podcast, and they have been incredibly consistent and bugged me every day this week about it. So thank you for that. They're also releasing their own podcast very soon called Living Vicariously Through Myself. So keep an eye out for that. When it is released, I absolutely put this in the show notes. This is live for the moment. But this will be published and posted on Apple Podcasts as well as Spotify. So while I've been absent, I have had the opportunity to experience a lot of different things. I would say September has been one of the best months that I've had in a really long time. And unfortunately, or fortunately, I think that's because I'm single. And as we grow older, I think it's important for us to take some steps back and realize the reasons behind why we might be getting into relationships. And I truly believe that we can learn a lot from each situation, relationship that we're in. But I think the learning really comes or is rooted in learning about oneself, right? Relationships are a skill. You can learn how to communicate better. You can learn how to listen to a partner's needs and be more attentive or anticipate what they might need before that. So those are all wonderful skills that I believe relationships teach you. That being said, I think it all comes down to us learning a lot about ourselves. And so having been single for about the past 2 months, for those of you who know me intimately, you know that I always have a boyfriend. I'm always in a relationship and I love being in love. And I just thought that was a part of me, right? And so I really was constantly seeking out ways to be involved with people because I wanted that deep connection. I craved that connection, truthfully. That being said, having been single for the past few months, came at the same time in which a really beautiful community opportunity came into my life. And I'm incredibly grateful for Lucia Silva. She is my Brazilian teacher who has taught me so much about samba, dance, life in general. And she decided to bring the queen of samba, Tai Rodrigues, from Rio, and one of the top choreographers from Brazil, Patrick Carvalho. And they came and we trained like maniacs for almost a month straight, 4 or 5 days a week, 4 or 5 hours every day of the week. There was about 15 of us, and we ended up putting on this incredible samba show. And there was everything from funk, which is kind of like a hip hop, very African fused style of Brazilian dancing, but it's definitely more urban, like more street radio hip hop kind of music that you would hear. We did traditional samba no pé, which is what you will see with the feathers on Carnaval. We did some beautiful Afro-Brazilian dances deeply rooted in the spirituality and orishas and different African spiritual elements of the culture and the dance. And so altogether, it was this incredible show that required and demanded so much of everyone involved. But by having so much respect for Luciana, for Tai, for Patrick, I realized I am an undisciplined ass bitch and that I really needed people to hold me accountable. And so I gave that thank you to Danny when we first started this because I am learning that that is a big part of my personality, that like I have all these ideas and I don't know if it's the ADHD or just the me in it, but I really need help being held accountable to following through with things. And I think there's a lot of women that can relate to this. You know, we talk about masculine and feminine energies, and the feminine is very much nurturing and receiving and coming up with ideas, and the masculine is goal oriented and goes after things to achieve them. It is this element of providership, right? And so we both have the masculine and feminine energies within us, regardless of your gender identity, your sexual orientation. You know, in traditional Chinese medicine or culture, maybe you would refer to it as the yin and the yang rather than masculine and feminine. But I realized that I'm my happiest when I'm in my feminine energy and deeply connected with that, but that doesn't mean that I can ignore the masculine. And so my point in sharing all of this is that this show required me to show up for, you know, a month straight and train like a maniac, no matter how tired I was. And ultimately, we produced this beautiful show. We performed 2 days. We did a performance up in Boulder. We did a performance up in Denver. There were so many incredible people from different times in my life that showed up to support that I hate to sound surprised about, but I think, you know, I don't want to make generalizations, so I'll just speak for myself. I haven't been good at promoting myself or asking for the support in the way that we need it. And so all of this is to say, recognizing our faults, I believe, is a key to wellness. So for me, that is knowing that I need help being held accountable to follow through with things, even if I really want to do them. It's not like I just get lazy and don't want to do them, but that's somewhere I need help with. And then two, learning how to ask for what you need. So I think this Viva Brazil, this experience that Luciana gifted all of us that were involved, really taught me about discipline and just showing up every day, even when you're really tired and you don't want to. But when there's community involved, I think it offers a different element of ability to connect. You know, when I think of discipline, I think of the person who's like up at 5 a.m. at the gym, and that is just not me. And so in my mind, I kind of rolled my eyes at discipline, like, no, that's just rigidity, or that's just people, you know, trying to be able to say that they did something, which, like, there's nothing wrong with that, by the way, but that's my initial like defiant attitude towards it. But I noticed that when community is involved, it's just like what you give, you will receive tenfold. And so having the opportunity to be involved where there was immense amount of discipline required to continue to show up, but that what it gave me in return was so deeply fulfilling. I found myself crying like frequently, if not every day on the drive home, of just gratitude, of being like, oh my God, this is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. This is what I need. This is the wake up call that I have been, asking for, and that this is the love that I've wanted. And so circling back to having been single for a couple months now, I'm so grateful that this opportunity happened or came my way, because honestly, it demanded so much time. I couldn't be interested in dating. And I have a very clear pattern of breaking up with someone and then immediately getting back out there and not loathing on it, but just, learning and keeping it moving. Right. But I think I was a little addicted to the love chemicals. I was addicted to getting the attention and feeling loved and knowing that I'm a very good caretaker. So having a lot of joy and providing for other people and learning how to take care of them and making them feel nurtured. But just because we're good at something doesn't mean that we should do it all the time. So I wanted to share that with you because I'm just in a very different space now. And I'm really grateful for that. And I want to continue sharing the importance of community with you all because of how deeply it has affected my wellness journey. So I'd like to come back really quick just to this idea of not waiting. With whatever endeavor you're interested in pursuing, I would like to lend you the advice that you are never going to feel ready. Whatever pursuit you're interested in, whatever, new podcast you want to do, whatever new job you want to try, whatever content you want to start making, you're honestly never going to feel ready. And I wish someone had told me that sooner, because I kept waiting. And I noticed that some of my best work is done, and I'm sure a lot of you can relate to this. My best work is often done under pressure or when I have a deadline that I'm a hair away from not making. And I'm not sure what that's about. I'm not going to pathologize myself, but I would say just knowing that, part of being an adult is understanding our pain points, quote unquote, or our weak spots or our weaknesses, and setting up often artificial experiences in which you can, yield the best results. So if I know that my problem is that I procrastinate forever, make a deadline for yourself. Book the call with your client sooner than you're ready to actually do. Create, the event that you want to host way sooner than you think you're ready, and just do it. Because the reality is, the first time you're going to do it, it's not going to be perfect. No matter how many hours you put in, no matter how much you try and prepare for it the best you can, there's so many things that you don't know about this specific audience, this milieu, this community, whatever, that you're just going to have to learn by doing. And I would say I'm so grateful for the way that I have been pushed by other people lately, and as a result have learned things about myself. And so I've also found that now something that I can do for myself is to create, artificial urgency so that I get things done. And this is why I'm live right now, because I knew if I just turned on the microphone and started recording, knowing that I was going to edit in mind, that I'd be way in my head trying to re-record things every time I, had a missed step or said a wrong word or pronounced something weird. So again, just a reminder that whatever, pursuit you're trying to do, people are going to like it because they like you. People are going to come for the content because you're making it. People are going to come to the show because you're in it. People are going to ask for your services because it's uniquely related to you. So just remembering that we have gifts, and our unique gifts are our superpower. I know people don't tell us how much they can often feel seen within us, but you don't know if it's the weird way that you pronounce something that somebody else is going to connect with, and now they're going to pick you over another person offering the same service, right? It's when you are authentically yourself and when you show up as yourself, you will give people the permission to relate and see themselves in you so much more than you could ever imagine and will likely ever know, because they're not always going to voice that to you, right? But just knowing that people love you for you, and if you're not getting that feedback, then you're not in the right communities. And that if you put yourself out there authentically, that those communities will start to come to you. So you're never going to be ready. That's for that section. Okay. Whatever you're wanting to try, you're never going to be ready. Just do it. I heard this TikTok sound and it was like, if you can't, get over your fear, do it scared. And I think it's great. I believe that the moment that you stop being scared is the moment that you don't care anymore. And so just giving yourself the permission to know that you're not going to do it right the first time or perfectly, but to do it anyways. So I want to talk about community a little bit more. I heard this sound on TikTok, and of course, I can't remember the original artist right now. So I will share their info in the show notes when I publish this. But the TikTok was talking about how romantic love has been marketed to us as a preferable form of love or something that we need, because communal love can be a threat to the state. And that might sound like really anti-government, wild, but I think it is something to really consider in the way that capitalism can profit off of romantic love, right? There's, diamonds are sold and all of these, artificial holidays like Valentine's Day or making Christmas all about gifts, right? And so that when there's community, they will take on your own pain and feel for you deeper. And this idea that, if it takes a village to raise a child, why would that have changed as we've grown older? And I really don't think it has, but I don't think we're used to thinking of it this way. And I know in other cultures, this is a little bit different. And within the United States, I believe we have a lot of really unique pieces of our culture, just because we are so diverse in how many cultures exist here. So that being said, what is quote unquote American culture? Like, we don't have, a folk dance that has been danced for hundreds or thousands of years like other countries do, right? English is, a lot of our second language learned, but it's a meshing language. Like, we don't have a long ancient history other than fucking racism and slavery that other countries do, that allows us to relate on a common level. So what does that mean? I think that because we have all these different subcultures, which is part of what makes the US so beautiful, please don't get me wrong on that. But it often makes it challenging for us to really relate or to engage in tradition. And part of tradition in virtually every other culture is the sacred nature of community. And I think if we look around, we can see that people all over the place are desperately trying to create that community. It's not that there isn't the desire for that, but I don't think we've been given the vocabulary to put it that clearly. And so we see this in, different churches or different spiritual communities. We see it by, niche fashion or like counterculture communities like hipsters were a few years ago, right? And so I think we're all desperately looking for it, but we aren't really getting fed. And so then we continue to look elsewhere, i.e., romantic love, in order to feel that depth of connection. And for a lot of people, it's successful. But my big question then is, okay, well, after a few years of marriage, why is it that, the quote unquote marriage is dry? Or, you're not interested in the same things anymore. And I feel like we are putting all of the burden on our partner to feed us in ways that they can't. No one person could possibly feed us in all of the ways that we need. We ourselves can't even feed ourselves in all of the ways that we need, which is precisely why we need community. And so I would just invite us, I'm having a moment of reflection with relationships and being single. And so I would invite all of us to take a moment and think about the roles of romantic love and the roles of community love in our lives. What has that looked like for you, from childhood? What kinds of communities were you involved in when you were younger? Did your parents set any sort of example for you in terms of community? Were you part of a big community? Did that change when you started to attend high school or went to university? Or how have you looked for culture in different ways, and how have you looked for community? And so again, sharing my personal bit, I have looked for my partner to offer me everything, and it's simply just an unrealistic, unfair expectation. And having to caretake for someone like that puts us in much more of a parental role rather than a romantic role, which is the easiest way to kill a relationship, I feel. That being said, if I look at the community side of my life, I learned to not trust women from a very young age. There was a lot of mean girls in school, and I was super sensitive. So, maybe if I had a thicker skin, I would have been able to overlook certain things. But any hostility from women, I just learned that it was not a safe space. I then switched schools a lot. I went to 3 different high schools across 4 years, part of which is middle school. So 3 different schools in 5 years. And, if you think adolescent girls are mean, try teenage girls, right? And I never was able to fit in anywhere. And I realized this deeply affected my ability to form community or like have big friend groups. Like I never had a big friend group whenever I would watch, reality TV or even just see people in different countries where they had a friend group that's like 10, 15 people deep. I just thought that was outrageous because I couldn't even think of that many people that I knew that even knew one another, nonetheless wanted to spend time with one another. And so then, you know, um, I'm lonely, so I would look to men for their company because it was much easier, right? You're pretty, you're new, like whole fresh meat kind of vibe in high school. Very easy for men to entertain. So then I learned that, okay, well, men are a more reliable place for affection, for company, and to get my needs met. But that really messes with you in the long run because now I am completely dependent upon my romantic partner for all of the needs that I want met. And like I mentioned earlier, that's the easiest way to squash any passion. So then I got involved with a dance troupe, and there was a community member and leader of that who was, more than twice my age and had every opportunity to be a leader in the space and to see me as a protege and really help. But instead, they chose envy and did some like hideous backstabbing, super unprofessional, outrageous things to me that furthered this narrative in my mind that women could not be trusted. And then the only community that I had ever had that was rooted in dance and multiculturalism was completely ripped out of my life. So then I went to community college for a couple of years, again, started dating someone, lived with them, back into this thing of depending on my romantic partner for everything. Then I continued dating through college, same deal. I tried to join a couple of clubs, but definitely felt, again, some of the lady on lady hatred or envy that, now I realize is rooted in insecurity, but I don't think the conversations were happening at that time, the same kind of conversations that are happening now in terms of like, if someone is mean to you, like it's a reflection of them, or, they're just insecure and threatened by your confidence or whatever. I didn't get that back then. So it was just really painful consistently. And again, further that narrative that women are not to be trusted. And that relying on my romantic partner for everything was a much safer route. So then I kept dating, and COVID happened, and I fell into a big caretaking role for my mother. Unfortunately, she became very ill during COVID and she is single. And so I became her full time caretaker. That plus the entire world is falling apart around us as we knew it. And there was so much uncertainty. Mm, and as things started to lighten up, I found another relationship and was so excited. And I think accepted a lot of things that I wouldn't because I was feeling so isolated, as we all were. Um, put up with that for about 6 or 7 months, dated somebody else after, and only really recently, sort of set myself free of that narrative. And I believe that is because the presence of community has become so strong in my life. And I can absolutely attribute that to the women at Basma Dance and Fitness. So, Basma in Arabic means to smile. This studio was created by Mesa. She is a Dubai born Lebanese woman who has been the biggest blessing to my life. Back in May, she asked if I would teach yoga at her studio, which was a huge honor. I had never taught anywhere consistently. Going back to that thing of discipline, I'm not very good at it. And so I needed her to hold me accountable, and I needed her to make me show up every week, and the students to, depend on me to show up every week in order to make it happen. So I started teaching yoga there. Then I started teaching Samba on Monday nights at 7. Please come if that's of interest to you. Totally beginner class. We start from scratch, so no pressure there. But the women there are we come from so many different cultures. There are Caribbean women, there are African women, there are Latin women, there are Arab women, there are Asian women. Like, it is, the most beautiful mix of women. So it's completely owned by women of color, completely operated by women of color. Obviously, it's open to everyone, but the vast majority of our students are women of color. And so this created a safe space for me where the first time it wasn't riddled with hate and envy. And it was like I had never seen women in my life build one another up. And I know that is maybe the nature of a lot of these women, but also very much a result of who Mesa is and how she founded this business. Like, before it even opened, you couldn't say, oh, yeah, Mesa's studio. She would go, no, this is our studio. This is a studio of the community. And so to find a woman who is in ownership of something, but is so humble and so selfless with all of it, was just completely new to me. And so, being able to experience belonging and community love and being able to all share pain over something that one is experiencing and just being there for one another was so foreign to me, but is so new. And, if you've had some strong communities, you might be hearing this like, duh, Julia, this is what, people do. But truthfully, this was new to me. I had never had a spiritual community or a church community or, any sort of scholastic or extracurricular community where there was that genuine lack of judgment coupled with such strong love. Yes, maybe I felt love, but it was also, met with backhanded compliments or certain shame tactics to make sure that people really fell in line and behaved a certain way. And so this was certainly the first experience I've had with such non-judgmental, beautiful, always there, kind, but also always holding you accountable love. So if you're feeling like you're doing a lot for your self-care or you're doing a lot to better your life, but you're still feeling stuck, my message to you, or my question to you, would be, what is your relationship with your community? Because I really believe that you can do all of the journaling, all of the self-work, shadow work, all of the yoga, all of the exercise, all of whatever self-care, practice you can do alone. You could do all of that. But if you are not deeply rooted and have a sense of belonging within a community, I just believe that there is so much potential that will be missed out on. So then the question is, how do we find this community? Okay, so we've got this great idea. We want to exist with people that are non-judgmental, and we want to, feel this sense of belonging, but maybe the communities that you're currently involved maybe the current communities that you are involved with are judgmental, or like have some people in it that you're not really jiving with. It's okay to leave spaces. And I would say maybe take a few minutes and envision what that perfect community would look like. And I'm not saying that you're going to, imagine this perfect community and then they're just going to show up, right? But I think when we are very clear on what we want out of a community and very clear on what we can give to a community, because that's also a huge part, right? It's not just all about taking. A sense of belonging and community very much is rooted in, yes, feeling great when you're there and being a recipient of all this love, but one has to be of service. And so going back to that idea of your dharma or your unique gifts, what can you offer a community and what would you like them to offer you? And I think when you really narrow down what it is you're after and what it is you can offer, you equip yourself with a set of lenses that now you see things. So now when you're at an event, you go, oh yeah, wow, that comment someone made was actually so kind and welcoming, and it wasn't rooted in judgment. That's the kind of stuff I'm after. That's what I want in a community member. That's what I want in a friend. And vice versa, if someone makes a comment or does something with their body where you feel like the intention is a little different, you go, ooh, okay, that's a really good thing for me to be aware of. That's what I don't want. So now that I've seen that, red flag or whatever you want to call it, let me steer clear of that. But I think if we don't know and we don't narrow it down to what's important for us and what we're able to provide, that it can be challenging to find that community. So to wrap this whole episode up, I would just like to remind us all that if it took a village to raise a child, it always will. And that child grows old and that child will have children, and that, principle will never change. And for this week, I invite you to take a global look at the ways you relate to romantic relationships, the ways they have played roles in your life, how they have served you and what they've taught you. And the same for community. What sort of communities have you been involved with? What have they given you? What have you liked or disliked? And if you're looking for, ways to be more involved, thinking about what you can offer. And if you're looking for new communities, thinking about what they might look like and specifically what attributes you'd like them to have. So I think that's a pretty loaded episode back. And I'm sending you all a wish for deep community connections this fall season. And if you're looking for a way to combat seasonal depression, community is going to be it. Thanks so much, y'all. Besos.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you or your company are looking to jump into the podcast world, now is the time. The Plug Agency is here to connect you to the full power of podcasting. You just record and leave the rest to us. The people are listening and want to hear from you. theplug-agency.com. That's theplug-agency.com. Click the link in the episode description for an exclusive offer.